This is the early edition, a curated weekday guide to major news and developments over the past 24 hours, curated by Veronica Galka and read by an automated voice. Published August 18, 2025 on Just Security, an essential resource for those shaping a just and secure world. Here's today's news. Federalization of D.C. policing. Some National Guard troops deployed to Washington, D.C. were told late on Friday to expect an order to carry weapons, sources say. A Guard spokesperson confirmed the reports yesterday, stating that Guard members may be armed consistent with their mission and training. Separately, the Republican governors of West Virginia, South Carolina, and Ohio announced they would send up to 750 more Guard soldiers to the city. Vera Bergengruen, Lara Seligman, and Micah Maidenberg report for The Wall Street Journal. Joe Hernandez, Luke Garrett, and Brian Mann report for NPR. A National Guard soldier on Friday temporarily detained a man who the authorities say assaulted a U.S. Park police officer on the National Mall in D.C., the first such action by the Guard during its ongoing deployment. Eric Schmidt and Campbell Robertson report for The New York Times. The Justice Department on Friday agreed to rescind its attempt to insert Terry Cole, the head of the Drug Enforcement Administration, as the head of the D.C. Police Department. The DOJ's move to agree to leave the current city police chief in charge came after a hearing with a federal judge who pledged to intervene unless the administration revised its stance in response to a lawsuit filed by Washington, D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab. Zach Montague reports for The New York Times. Nicole Marcus and Kyle Cheney report for Politico. Hundreds of demonstrators protested against the Trump administration's deployment of National Guard troops in Washington on Saturday. Elise McFadden reports for The New York Times. U.S. immigration developments. The Trump administration is discussing a refugee admissions cap of around 40,000 for the coming year, with the majority of spaces allocated to white South Africans, according to two U.S. officials and an internal email seen by Reuters. Ted Hessen reports. The Pentagon is deploying 100 Marines to support ICE operations in Florida, U.S. Northern Command announced on Thursday. Other troops will be deployed to Texas and Louisiana, the command added. Zita Ballinger-Fletcher reports for Military Times. ICE is planning to double its immigrant detention system capacity by opening or expanding 125 facilities this year, according to internal documents obtained by The Washington Post. Douglas Macmillan, N. Kirkpatrick, and Lydia Sidham report. U.S. foreign developments. The United States has had internal discussions on whether Trump should discuss using Russian nuclear-powered icebreaker vessels to support the development of gas and LNG projects in Alaska during the summit with Putin, sources say. The icebreaker idea was one of the potential deals to try to strike with Russia considered by the White House, a source added. Marwa Rashad and Anna Hertenstein report for Reuters. Guests at an Anchorage hotel on Friday found papers with U.S. State Department markings revealing previously undisclosed and potentially sensitive details about the Trump-Putin meeting in one of the hotel's printers, NPR reports. An administration spokesperson characterized the papers, which included precise times and locations of each meeting, as well as the phone numbers of several administration officials, as a multi-page lunch menu and not a security breach. Chiara Eisner reports. Katie Rogers reports for The New York Times. Tech developments. OpenAI is strongly considering adding encryption to at least some ChatGPT conversations, the group's CEO Sam Altman said, pointing to the growing number of people sharing sensitive information with AI. Ina Fried reports for Axios. A federal lawsuit filed on Friday accuses Otter.ai of deceptively recording private conversations to train its popular transcription service. Bobby Allen reports for NPR. Trump administration actions. Treasury Secretary and acting IRS Commissioner Scott Bessent last week ousted 3 senior IRS executives responsible for online tax services and the scrutiny of tax-exempt organizations, sources say. Jacob Bogage and Shannon Namabadi report for The Washington Post. Trump administration litigation. The Trump administration's extensive reductions in force at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau can proceed, an appeals court ruled on Friday in a 2-1 decision. The majority held that the claims of employees who were laid off must proceed through the specialized review scheme established in the Civil Service Reform Act. Laurel Wamsley reports for NPR. A federal judge on Friday denied the Trump administration's request to terminate the Flores settlement agreement, a policy meant to protect immigrant children in federal custody. The judge ruled that there is nothing new regarding the facts or the law since the government's latest attempt to depart from the agreement that would justify its termination. Valerie Gonzalez reports for AP News. Russia-Ukraine war, U.S. and international response. Several European leaders will join Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky when he meets with President Trump at the White House later today to present a united front between Europeans and Ukrainians, French President Emmanuel Macron said. Zelensky and Trump are expected to discuss the outcome of the Friday summit between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, which failed to yield a ceasefire agreement. Macron, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Finnish President Alexander Stubb, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen are all expected to be present during the Trump-Zelensky meeting. Constant Mehut and Enjoli Liston report for The New York Times. BBC News reports. Megan Vasquez reports for The Washington Post. Russian President Vladimir Putin wants Ukraine's Donbas region in exchange for freezing other front lines of the war and a written promise not to attack Ukraine or any European country, Trump told European leaders and Zelensky. According to sources, Trump also dropped his demand for an immediate ceasefire, stating that Ukraine and Russia should go straight to negotiating a peace treaty. Russian forces at present occupy almost all of the Luhansk region of Donbas, but do not control part of the strategic fortified Donetsk region. Christopher Miller, Amy McKinnon, Max Seddon, and Anne-Sylvain Chassany report for the Financial Times. Ellen Francis, Siobhan O'Grady, Catherine Belton, and David L. Stern report for The Washington Post. Stephen Erlanger reports for The New York Times. Trump told European leaders he is open to offering U.S. security guarantees to Ukraine, a move commended by the Europe's Coalition of the Willing. According to 3 European officials, Trump indicated such guarantees could include U.S. military support for a European-led security force and said that Putin had accepted that a durable peace would need to include the presence of Western troops in Ukraine. Bojan Panchevsky, Lawrence Norman, and Daniel Michaels report for The Wall Street Journal. BBC News reports. There is no going into NATO by Ukraine and no getting back of the Crimean Peninsula, Trump stated in a social media post yesterday. He also incorrectly claimed that Crimea was occupied by Russia without a shot being fired. Kevin Liptak reports for CNN, Vitaly Shevchenko reports for BBC News. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East Steve Witkoff yesterday told CNN that Putin agreed to robust security guarantees and legislative enshrinement of a promise not to invade Ukraine or another European country during the Friday summit in Anchorage. Neither provision has been mentioned in Russian accounts of the summit. Separately, Secretary of State Marco Rubio told ABC News that while progress was made, we're not at the precipice of a peace deal. Kevin Liptak reports, Kelsey Walsh reports. Russia-Ukraine war. Russia is preparing to test its new nuclear-capable, nuclear-powered cruise missile, Ukraine's military intelligence service said on Friday, warning that Moscow plans to use the results to bolster its negotiating position if the test is successful. While the service did not name its sources, its account corroborates findings of U.S. researchers and a Western security source reported by Reuters last week. Tom Baumforth and Jonathan Landay report for Reuters. A Russian overnight attack on an apartment block in Ukraine's Kharkiv killed at least 4 people, including a child, the local mayor said today. Separately, a glide bomb attack killed 1 person and injured 6 in the Zaporizhia region. Vitaly Shevchenko reports for BBC News. Vitaly Nidhi reports for Reuters. Israel-Hamas war, U.S. and international The U.S. State Department on Saturday announced it had paused approvals of visitor visas for people from Gaza to conduct a full and thorough review of the process by which temporary medical visas are issued. The move, which halts a pathway for those seeking medical care in the United States, came after a lobbying campaign by the far-right activist Laura Loomer, who called medical evacuation flights of children from Gaza a national security threat. Hamed Aliaziz and Ken Bensinger report for The New York Times. Giselle Ruhiyi-Ewing reports for Politico. A group of between 30 and 50 critically ill and injured Palestinian children will travel to the United Kingdom for medical treatment from Gaza in the coming weeks, according to BBC News. Leila Nathu and Jessica Ronsley report. Israel-Hamas war. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis yesterday participated in some of the largest anti-war protests in months, organized by a group representing families of Israeli hostages, according to local media reports. While the protests were ongoing, the IDF Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, and senior military commanders in Gaza approved a plan for the next phase of the war focused on capturing Gaza City, according to an IDF readout and Israel's public broadcaster Kan. Claire Parker, Heidi Levine, Alon Ram, and Abby Cheeseman report for The Washington Post. Other global developments. Bolivia is set to elect its first non-left-wing president after nearly 2 decades of near-continuous rule by the incumbent Socialist Party, the results of yesterday's preliminary presidential election suggest. The country's former socialist president, Evo Morales, has urged his supporters to cast invalid votes in protest against legal and constitutional rulings blocking him from running for a 4th term. Ione Wells reports for BBC News. Mali's military junta on Thursday announced it had arrested several individuals planning a coup, including Malian military personnel and a French national, whom it accused of being a spy. The French Foreign Office on Saturday said the French national is a member of the French embassy, and the accusations against him are unfounded. Eve Sampson reports for The New York Times. Reuters reports. A prominent Sudanese human rights group, the Emergency Lawyers, has accused the Sudanese army and security forces of torturing people to death and operating execution chambers. Wedeli Chibalushi and Will Ross report for BBC News. Hundreds of people demonstrated in Syria's southern city of Sweda in support of the Druze minority's self-determination on Saturday. According to the activist media collective Suwaida 24, the protests were the largest since last month's deadly clashes. AP News reports. A pro-Russian propaganda group is taking advantage of high-profile news events to spoof reputable organizations and spread disinformation, according to misinformation tracker NewsGuard. Dana Nickel reports for Politico. Thank you for listening to Just Security's Early Edition today, August 18, 2025. If you enjoy listening, Just Security's analytic articles are also available in audio form on the justsecurity.org website. To stay up to date on Just Security's analysis of law, policy, and current events, go to justsecurity.org. Subscribe to Just Security on Substack, and follow us on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Facebook, and Threads. In case you missed it, last week on Just Security. How to truly keep Washington, D.C. safe. President Trump's militarized approach undercuts what's been working by Danelle Harvin. Legal frameworks for addressing spyware harms by Lissandra Novo. Dissecting the litigation, where Trump administration actions face early roadblocks or traction, by Danny Shulkin and Ryan Goodman.